The road curved endlessly along the coast, silver mist swallowing everything beyond the headlights. The rhythmic hum of tires against asphalt should have been comforting, but tonight, it sounded like a countdown. I watched his hands on the steering wheel. Steady, careful, distant. He used to glance at me during drives, fingers brushing mine, music loud, laughter louder. Now there was only the soft static of an old radio station, and the occasional flick of his thumb checking his phone on the console between us. "Almost there," he said, voice even, eyes fixed ahead. I nodded, forcing a smile he didn't see. "It feels farther than I remember." He chuckled, polite, hollow. "We haven't been here since the first anniversary." Maybe that's why. The word first hung between us like a ghost. That trip had been full of promises, kisses, and long nights tangled in warmth. Now even our silence felt rehearsed. Outside, the sea appeared, dark and endless, waves breaking against black rock. The horizon looked like a wound in the sky. I turned away, watching our reflection in the window. Two silhouettes pretending to still belong to each other. He reached for the temperature knob, not me. "You okay?" "I'm fine." I wasn't. Every sentence between us had become a negotiation. How much truth could fit inside a lie before it broke apart? I thought of the past few months, of missed calls and late nights, of the perfume that wasn't mine. My throat burned, but I swallowed the ache. "Strange, isn't it?" I said softly. "How some places change when you come back." He didn't answer. Maybe he didn't hear. Maybe he did. The wind picked up, shaking the car. A road sign flashed by. Bray Cove, 2 miles. I traced the letters in my mind as if memorizing the name of the place where something would end. He finally looked at me then. Just a glance, quick and unreadable. "Let's make this weekend good, okay?" I smiled again, the way one smiles before stepping into deep water. "Of course." The waves grew louder as we turned toward the beach road, and the house appeared through the fog, waiting, the beginning of the end. The gravel crunched beneath the tires as we pulled up to the beach house. The fog had thinned, revealing the shape of it. Pale wood and wide windows facing the restless ocean. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it looked like a photograph left too long in the sun. Color drained, memory fading. He cut the engine and the silence fell heavy, broken only by the wind. "Still the same," he murmured, stepping out first. I followed, wrapping my coat tighter. Salt air clung to everything. The front door creaked when he pushed it open, the sound echoing through the hollow rooms. Inside, the air smelled of old pine and damp seaweed. The ghosts of summers long gone. We walked through each room without speaking much. The kitchen with chipped tiles, the bedroom with the uneven floor, the balcony where the view stretched endlessly into nothing. I could almost hear our younger laughter floating somewhere above the sound of the waves. "It's smaller than I remember," I said. He smiled faintly. "Or maybe we got bigger." His phone buzzed again, sharp, intrusive. He silenced it quickly, sliding it into his pocket. I pretended not to notice, but my eyes lingered on the way his jaw tightened. "Work?" I asked lightly. "Yeah, just work." He left it at that, turning to open a window that refused to move. The wind forced its way in anyway, fluttering the curtains like they were trying to escape. While he unpacked in the next room, I ran my hand along the worn wooden counter. A single seashell sat there, delicate and cracked as if waiting to be crushed. The sound of his voice drifted in faintly, low, hurried, muffled. A phone call. I stepped closer to the door, my heartbeat sinking with the crashing waves outside. "Yes, tomorrow," he whispered. "I can't talk now." When he returned moments later, his smile was practiced. "Just checking the heater," he said. I nodded, pretending to believe him. The air between us grew colder, the kind of chill that had nothing to do with weather. From the open window, the sea roared, endless, consuming, patient, and I wondered, not for the first time, what it might take to make silence permanent. By evening, the house had grown quieter, as if holding its breath with me. The sunset bled across the horizon, a slow spill of gold into red, staining the sea like a wound that wouldn't close. I set the table on the balcony, 2 glasses of wine catching the last of the light. He joined me after a long shower, smelling faintly of salt and soap. His phone stayed face down on the counter, a small mercy. For a moment, everything looked almost normal. The laughter, the shared glances, the forced comfort of old rituals. "To us," he said, raising his glass. "To us," I echoed, though the words felt foreign in my mouth. The first sip burned pleasantly. The second went down too fast. I talked about meaningless things. The drive, the fog, how the house seemed smaller. He smiled at the right places, nodding, his mind clearly somewhere else. It was easy to pretend, but the truth kept rising like a tide. I watched the reflection of the waves in his eyes, waiting for the right moment to speak. "Do you ever think about people we've lost touch with?" I asked. He tilted his head. "Like who?" "Lena." The name fell between us like glass shattering. He froze, the smile dying on his lips. His fingers tightened around the wine glass, and I heard the faint crack of pressure. "Who?" His tone was too calm. "Lena," I repeated, voice softer now. "The one who texted you at midnight last month. The one you said was your colleague." He laughed, but it wasn't laughter. More like the sound of something breaking. "You're imagining things again, Emma. Again." The word sliced deeper than any confession could. "I saw the messages," I said quietly. "Don't lie." He leaned back, eyes narrowing, his reflection sharp against the darkening window. "You've been checking my phone?" "I had to," I whispered. "You weren't talking to me." His expression hardened, voice low and deliberate. "You're making something out of nothing. You twist everything. You always do." There it was, the familiar shift. The denial, the blame, the rewriting of truth. He'd done it so many times before that I almost believed him. Almost. I looked away, watching the sun sink beneath the sea until only its dying light flickered across the water. He stood, taking his phone. "I'm going for a walk." The door closed behind him, leaving the sound of waves and the echo of her name still bleeding in the air. He came back late, smelling of sea air and something else. Distance. I pretended to be asleep, my breathing slow and steady as he slid under the sheets beside me. The mattress dipped, his weight familiar and foreign all at once. For a while, I just listened. The rhythm of his breathing, the faint hum of waves against the shore, the soft vibration of his phone on the nightstand. That sound used to mean safety, connection. Now it pulsed like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I waited until his breaths deepened, steady and careless. Then slowly I reached for the phone. My fingers hesitated above it, that small black device holding everything he thought I wouldn't see. The screen lit up with the same password he'd sworn he'd changed. He hadn't. Of course he hadn't. He never believed I'd actually look. Messages bloomed in the darkness like poison flowers. "Lena," at the top of the thread. My pulse stuttered. "Lena, I can't wait any longer." Him. "Soon, after the trip." "Lena, after she's gone." Him. "Yes, after she's gone." The words blurred, black letters swimming on white light. "After she's gone." I scrolled further. Photos of hotel rooms, blurred kisses, sunsets that weren't ours. Each one felt like a small blade pressed against the skin of my sanity. My throat tightened. I wanted to throw the phone, to wake him, to scream. But instead, I set it back where it was, carefully, as though placing a fragile secret back into its nest of lies. He stirred, muttering something in his sleep. I froze, every muscle locked. "Emma," he breathed. My name, gentle, unearned. I almost laughed. Outside, the ocean raged louder, slamming itself against the rocks. The wind clawed at the shutters, demanding to be let in. I pressed my hand against my chest to quiet the tremor there. Was he planning to leave me? Or something worse? The words "after she's gone" looped in my mind until they no longer sounded human. I turned on my side, watching the dim outline of his face, peaceful, trusting, as if he hadn't already killed something between us. The sea roared again, closer this time. I wondered if it could hear me whisper, "Not before I'm ready." And then in the dark I made a silent promise, one he'd never read in any message. Morning came too bright, too ordinary. The kind of light that tries to erase what the night knows. I woke before him, the weight of last night still pressing behind my ribs. His phone lay where I'd left it, silent now, harmless in the daylight. I moved through the kitchen slowly, every gesture careful, deliberate. Coffee, toast, the sound of the pan warming. My body went through the motions like an old machine still pretending to work. The air smelled of burnt bread and sea salt. Behind me, I heard him stir. "You're up early," he said, his voice groggy, easy. Couldn't sleep, I replied, turning just enough to smile. It felt like stretching skin over something broken. He came closer, kissed my cheek, the kind of touch meant to reassure but not connect. Smells good, he said, thanks. The eggs hissed in the pan. The sound filled the silence we didn't want to face. I watched him pour his coffee, the same way he always did. 2 sugars, no cream. Familiarity should have been comforting, but now it only made me aware of the performance we'd built around our lies. So, he said lightly, feel better after some rest? I nodded, stirring my cup though I'd already dissolved the sugar. Much better. He smiled, but his eyes lingered too long on mine. Searching maybe, sensing something he couldn't quite name. I wondered if he could hear it. The steadiness of my calm, the quiet hum of something waiting underneath. You were talking in your sleep, he said suddenly. My hand froze around the spoon. Was I? Yeah, couldn't make out the words. He sipped his coffee, watching me over the rim of the cup. I forced a small laugh. Maybe I was dreaming about the sea. That's so. I met his gaze, holding it. It was loud. He chuckled softly, but the sound didn't reach his eyes. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us felt like glass, thin, transparent, ready to crack. Then he looked away, checking his phone again. I turned back to the stove, watching the flame flicker beneath the pan, steady and quiet, like the kind of fire that waits for its moment. Outside, the ocean murmured in reply. The afternoon light shimmered against the water, sharp and blinding. I'd gone down to the shore to breathe, to let the waves drown out the sound of my thoughts. But even the sea couldn't quiet what was coming. I heard his footsteps before I saw him, fast, uneven, angry. When I turned, he was already there, phone in hand, face pale with fury. Were you going through my messages? His voice cracked like the wind splitting wood. The question wasn't really a question. He already knew the answer. I stayed still, sand cold beneath my feet. You left it unlocked. That's not the point, he snapped. You violated my privacy. I laughed, the sound brittle. Your privacy? You mean our lies? His jaw tightened. You don't trust me. You never did, because you gave me reasons not to. I shouted louder than I meant to. The wind snatched my words and threw them back at us. You lied, Daniel. About her. About everything. He stepped closer, the distance between us swallowed by his anger. You're twisting things again, Emma. You always twist things until you're the victim. My heart pounded, not from fear, from disbelief. The victim? I whispered. You wrote after she's gone. What did that mean? His mouth opened, then closed. For a second, I saw something like panic flicker across his face, quickly replaced by cold resolve. You're paranoid, he said. You've lost your grip. Something inside me cracked. Don't you dare make me feel crazy. Not this time. He reached out suddenly, grabbing my arm. The pressure of his hand burned through my sleeve. Let go, I said. Emma, listen. Let go. He didn't. The waves crashed harder, wind thrashing my hair into my face. I shoved him just enough to break free. He stumbled back a step, eyes wide. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Only the roar of the ocean filled the silence. His hand trembled. Mine did too. Is this what you wanted? He asked quietly. To destroy everything? I met his gaze, voice low. No, you already did. He turned away, walking toward the rocks where the sea frothed white and violent. The sky was turning the color of bruises. I stood there, the wind slicing through me, the salt of tears and seawater mixing on my lips. And then, silence. The kind that feels like it's waiting for something to end. The wind was a living thing, tearing at the edges of my voice as I called after him. Daniel, wait! He didn't turn. His figure moved along the jagged rocks, a dark shape against the white crush of waves. The sea thundered, hungry. I followed, breath ragged, heart pounding with something I couldn't name. Fury, fear, love twisted beyond recognition. Every step brought me closer to him and closer to something I couldn't undo. He stopped near the edge, the water surging below like 1,000 fists. You can't keep doing this, he shouted over the wind. You want to control everything, even how this ends. I was crying now, though I couldn't feel the tears through the spray. I just wanted the truth. The truth? He laughed, wild, broken. You wouldn't survive it. He turned then, eyes fierce, lips trembling. For a heartbeat, we were two people balanced on the line between love and ruin. Daniel, please. I reached for him. He stepped back, or maybe I stepped forward. Our hands brushed, cold and wet. A flash of movement. A slip, a gasp, a shout swallowed by the sea. Then nothing. Just the sound. The endless roar of the ocean devouring everything. I fell to my knees, reaching for the spot where he'd stood. Spray hit my face, sharp and freezing. His voice echoed in my head. You wouldn't survive it. I don't remember how long I stayed there. The world tilted and dimmed until everything blurred. The rocks, the sky, the sea, even me. When I opened my eyes, the sun was low and red, bleeding into the horizon. My clothes were heavy with salt, my hands scraped raw. I was lying on the sand alone. The tide had risen. The footprints, both his and mine, ended at the rocks. Beyond them, only the waves remained, smooth and innocent, as if they hadn't swallowed a man whole. Daniel? My voice cracked, carried away by the wind. No answer. The sea glittered softly, pretending peace. Something inside me whispered that it was over. But another voice, smaller, colder, said it had only just begun. And with that thought, I began the long walk back to the house. By the time I reached the road, the sun had disappeared. The sky was bruised purple, the air heavy with salt and the faint metallic taste of guilt. My shoes squelched with every step, wet sand clinging to my ankles like a reminder. I didn't cry. Not really. My body was too tired to understand what it had lost. The world around me looked unreal. The dunes, the empty cottages, the waves still whispering behind me, telling a story I wasn't ready to hear. I rehearsed the words in my head, over and over until they sounded natural. He went for a walk. He never came back, simple, plausible, clean. When I reached the main road, a passing car slowed beside me. The driver rolled down his window, an older man with kind eyes. Ma'am, are you all right? You look like you've been out there for hours. I'm fine, I said automatically, though my voice didn't sound like mine. My husband, he hasn't come back yet. From the beach, he frowned. Do you want me to call someone? Yes, the police. The words left my mouth too easily. By the time the patrol car arrived, I had already folded myself into the version of me they needed to see. Trembling, worried, fragile. Not the woman who had screamed into the wind or watched the ocean take something she might have caused. At the small coastal station, I repeated my story for the first time. He went for a walk. He said he needed some air. That was before sunset. I waited, but he never returned. The officer nodded, typing notes. Was there an argument? I forced a small shake of the head. No, we were fine. The lie slid out smoother than I expected. He promised to send a search team at first light. They offered me tea, a blanket. I thanked them, polite, detached, when I finally saw my reflection in the window, pale skin, tangled hair, eyes hollow as shells. I almost didn't recognize her. Outside, the waves crashed faintly in the distance, steady, unrelenting. I told myself he was gone, but somewhere beneath the calm surface of my voice the truth shifted, restless, waiting to rise. She arrived the next morning, calm, precise, the kind of presence that didn't need to raise its voice to command a room. Detective Mira Khan introduced herself with a soft handshake and eyes that missed nothing. Mrs. Hale, I'm very sorry for what you're going through, she said. Her tone was gentle, but her gaze was sharp enough to draw blood. I nodded, clutching the blanket tighter around my shoulders. I just want him found. We'll do everything we can. She opened a small notebook, pen poised. Tell me again what happened last night. The same question again. My lines were memorized now, smoothed into something believable. We had dinner. He said he wanted a walk. I stayed inside. When he didn't come back, I went looking. She wrote each word carefully, glancing up every few seconds. You mentioned it was after sunset? Yes. But the tide comes in strong around then. Would he usually go near the rocks? I hesitated just long enough for her to notice. Sometimes. He liked the view. Mira's lips twitched, not quite a smile. I see. Her calmness unsettled me. It wasn't accusation, not yet. It was curiosity shaped like kindness. Later, when she asked to see my arms, I froze. Routine, she said, noticing the faint bruises. From the beach? Yes, I answered too quickly. I slipped. She didn't write that part down. When the officers returned from the search, Mira listened quietly. "No footprints past the rocks," one of them said. "The tide must have taken everything." Her eyes flicked to me. "Everything?" She repeated softly. I looked away, pretending to study the mug in my hands. "The ocean here, it keeps its secrets." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she closed her notebook. "Mrs. Hale, I'll need to go through the house later. Personal effects, phone records, anything that might help us understand his state of mind." "Of course," I said, smiling faintly. "Whatever helps." She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Good. Sometimes the smallest things tell the loudest stories." As she left, her reflection lingered in the window, clear, unwavering, while mine looked blurred, ghost-like. Outside, the waves broke against the shore again, steady as truth. They found him at dawn. The call came before sunrise, the kind of hour where the world still feels half dream, half confession. Detective Mira's voice was steady on the phone. "Mrs. Hale, we've recovered a body. We'll need you to come down to the station." My breath caught, but I forced calm. Is it him?" "We're not certain yet." Those words sat inside me like a second heartbeat. Not certain yet. The drive to the dock was endless. The ocean looked different now, colder, darker. The same waves that once whispered lullabies now sounded like accusations. Seagulls circled low, their cries sharp and pitiless. They had covered the body with a gray sheet. Only the outline showed. Shoulders, arms, the faint bend of a jawline. I stared, but the air seemed to thicken around me. My throat closed. Mira stood beside me, silent. Her presence felt heavier than the sea. "Whenever you're ready," she said. I nodded, but my knees wobbled. As the sheet lifted, a rush of salt and decay hit me. My eyes blurred. Not from tears at first, but from shock, guilt, disbelief. The face was ruined, distorted by the tide, but I recognized the watch on his wrist, the one I'd given him last anniversary, the only thing he ever kept polished. My hand rose to my mouth. "It's him." The words came out flat, practiced, like I'd said them before in some dark rehearsal of fate. Mira's gaze didn't waver. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said softly, but I could feel her studying every tremor in my body. I wanted to cry, truly cry, to make the grief sound real. But something inside me stayed locked. My tears came too late, too measured, falling neatly onto my sleeve. He was gone, and yet some small, treacherous part of me felt relief. Relief that it was over, that the tide had finished what I couldn't undo. Mira turned toward the horizon. "The sea gives back what it can't keep," she murmured. I stared at the waves, their rhythm endless. "Then it must have a conscience," I said. She looked at me, long, assessing, almost pitying. "Or a memory." The gulls screamed again, louder this time, as if echoing something neither of us dared to say. The house feels emptier now that they've taken his things. His clothes are gone, his toothbrush missing from the sink, his cologne fading from the air. Yet somehow he's still here, in the silence between the waves, in the space beside me on the bed. I sit at the table with the recorder Detective Mira left behind. "In case you remember anything," she'd said, sliding it across the wood like an offering. I told her I would, and now I do. The red light blinks, steady and patient. "My name is Elise Hale," I begin, my voice softer than I expect. I suppose this is my statement." I breathe in, then out. The air tastes like salt. I didn't mean for it to happen. "We were fighting, again." He said things I can't repeat. I said worse. And then, on that edge above the rocks, everything just blurred. I pause, hearing the faint echo of the tide beyond the window. He stepped back. Or maybe I did. The ground slipped, or I slipped. I remember his hand reaching out and then nothing. My voice breaks, not from sadness but exhaustion. "I could have grabbed him," I whisper. Maybe, but I didn't. I let the ocean decide. I thought that would make me innocent, letting the world choose instead of me. I close my eyes. I can still see the water swallowing his body, pulling him into its cold mercy. "I didn't push him," I say louder, as if the microphone might doubt me. But I didn't stop him from falling either. For a moment I hear footsteps, imagined. Maybe. The sound of him pacing like he used to when angry. He told me once, I continue, that the sea forgives everything. I guess he was wrong. It keeps secrets, but it never forgets. I stop recording, but the red light keeps blinking. Maybe it's still listening. Maybe she will too. Outside, the waves hit the shore with deliberate rhythm, like a heartbeat under the earth. You think one of us came back, but he's still here, in the hiss of the surf, in the shiver of glass when the wind moves through the cracks. Every time the tide returns, I hear his voice again. Soft, accusing, endless. Maybe this is what it means to live with what you've done. Maybe this is what it means to drown and still breathe.